Do you ever feel overwhelmed by the ever-changing world of technology? Tech It Out can help make some sense of it all. Breaking down geek speak into street speak, technology columnist, author, and TV personality Mark Saltzman covers consumer technology each week for every listener. Mark tackles the latest news, reviews, and how-tos to help you understand what's hot, what's not, and why.
Hey everyone, it's episode 333 of Tech It Out. Wow, almost 7 years of this weekly show. Yeah, I guess that makes sense, right? 50 odd shows a year times 7 is 350. So yeah, 17 episodes away from that. So it all adds up. Regardless, thrilled to have you along, whether you tune in on your local talk radio station or subscribe to the podcast. Thank you so much for your support on Tech It Out. On this 333rd episode, we're going to kick things off in a moment with a company that lets you rent a power bank, one of those backup batteries, to juice up your smartphone when you're at like a basketball or hockey game, a concert, and so on. It's a kiosk. We'll talk with the company ChargeFUZE. After that, a few more minutes with legendary filmmaker Kevin Smith, who geeks out with me for a little bit more. I started playing an interview a couple weeks ago. Love Kevin Smith's movies, so it was a real treat to chat with him about tech. After that, we'll chat about how gamers could reduce the odds of getting a headache. We'll chat with the doctor, a cognitive scientist, about some tips. And finally, McAfee, one of the biggest cybersecurity companies on the planet, talks with us about romance scams, loosely tied to Valentine's Day this past week. But we'll talk about the rise of AI and deepfakes and other threats to your wallet and how to fight back. All of this and more on an all-new Tech It Out powered by Intel, which I'll tell you more about shortly. Intel's new Core Ultra processors powering today's and tomorrow's laptops. We'll get to all that, but let's officially kick off this week's show with our first interview. Have you ever run out to a hockey game or basketball game or maybe a concert and realized that your smartphone's battery is waning? Well, you're not alone. Look around the venue, though, as you may see a ChargeFUZE station, which lets you affordably rent a power bank, a backup battery, to juice up your device for a few minutes. To tell us all about ChargeFUZE is the company behind them, Fuze Technology. We're joined by CEO Brandon Afari. Hi, Brandon. Good to chat with you.
Likewise, my pleasure.
Why don't we dive right in at a high level? What's Fuze all about?
So I'm glad you asked about what Fuze is about rather than just ChargeFUZE. So Fuze Technology, what we do is we try to focus on bringing innovative and convenient solutions to the market with the concept of connectivity behind it. So we're all falling under the umbrella of IoT solutions, which is Internet of Things. So think device-to-device communication. Today, Fuze Technology, we have two brands out there. The first being ChargeFUZE, which is what you referenced, and we also have AddFUZE as well. But the thesis is connectivity and convenience.
All right. So I painted this scenario off the top where we always have our phone with us, of course, but we don't always remember to charge it up. And the more that these devices can do, these are like digital Swiss Army knives, right? The more of the impact on the battery. So next thing you know, you're glancing down at your phone at a Taylor Swift concert and you've got 13%. You're not going to be happy, especially if you want to record some snippets and share it on social media. So how does ChargeFUZE work exactly? Maybe you can walk us through that.
Yeah, so the concept, if you think of how the city bike model works, the concept of the sharing economy is very similar to ChargeFUZE, except rather than it being a bike, it's a portable charger. Users in our network could essentially find and locate a charging station anywhere in the city. They could go to that kiosk, scan a QR code, out pops a portable charger. The charger has universal charging capability, so you can charge your phone, Android or iPhone on the go. And the beauty of it is you could actually return it to any station in the network. So we're creating this ecosystem of charging stations. So someone going to maybe Crypto.com Arena or Madison Square Garden could rent there and drop it off at the local bar in the respective city.
All right, so you don't have to return it to the same machine. I'm assuming there's an app that shows you where all your locations are.
Yes, that's correct. So it's an app, again, similar to a city bike or a scooter model. You can locate a station anywhere in the city.
What's the app that you would look for to download from the App Store or Google Play?
So the app itself is ChargeFUZE, F-U-Z-E.
And that's one word. ChargeFUZE is one word, right?
It's one word, exactly.
So look, I've seen these battery rental solutions. I was recently in Las Vegas for the Consumer Electronics Show. One model that I ran into was ChargeFUZE, and then the other was another brand. So what would you say separates ChargeFUZE from other rental kiosks like this?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say first and foremost, the concept itself, I mean, we have best in class technology. That's what we pride ourselves in. Our engineers are some of the best engineers in the United States and also internationally. So we really focus on building the best charging utility. But around that as well, I'd say that, where we are differentiators is the fact that the locations of venues that we're in are pretty vast, right? Especially with this concept. You want to use a service in which you could actually return it. You actually have a network behind you. So as a company, we power, as an example, over 70% of every major sports team. We have thousands of locations across, 40 states. So really, it's the fact that we have this strong network of prime venues and also just venues in general to really establish a proper network. But beyond that as well, again, it's the fact that the tech itself on our side is the most superior, but really it's just predicated on, our best in class technology and the fact that we do have this breadth and depth partners behind us.
Speaking of the best-in-class backup batteries or power banks, can you tell us a bit about them? You said it does have those common connectors built in, so I'm assuming micro USB for older Android devices, Lightning for older iPhones, and then USB-C for modern-day iPhones and Android devices as well. Can you talk to us about, I don't care milliamp this, milliamp that, but how many times can you charge up a typical phone? At least once, or does it vary?
Yeah, so and to recap, you're completely right. We have Lightning, micro USB, and USB-C for all the charging functionality. Generally speaking, it depends on your phone type and also how long you're using it for, or while you're using it, or using it, intensely while you're charging it as well.
Yeah, true.
But you could get anywhere from, a charge and a half to maybe even 2 charges, depending on the phone you're using. And I say too, it's ironic because it's not even just the use case of phones either, right? We have people, using it at studio sets as an example for their cameras, right? So I think the applications, it's pretty fun to see that. Sometimes it goes beyond, right, just a phone itself. It could be, for AirPods, it could be for a camera as mentioned. So it's fun to see the use cases.
Cool. We are chatting with Brandon Afari. He is the Chief Executive Officer for a company called Fuze Technology. They're the folks behind the ChargeFUZE. I call them kiosks. They're these like little machines that you would be able to rent a backup battery at a venue. You also said you have something called AdFUZE. This is another revenue model for you. Is that right? That there are screens on these machines or these kiosks and you can rent the ad space to an advertiser. Is that fair?
Exactly. So all our stations are equipped with digital screens. The beauty in our concept of ChargeFUZE and what we're doing is obviously we're leading with utility and amenity first, which is great. But on top of that, we give opportunities for big brands that are out there to really give hyper-targeted advertising to the right person at the right time. So again, think about people being in a compromised situation at a sporting event. Maybe a brand like Taco Bell or Burger King wants to target someone after that event. We're able to actually, again, capture that engagement at the right point in time for that right brand.
Could you also add branding to the power banks themselves, like a Taco Bell or KC Chiefs or 49ers, anything like that? Or because you can return it to a different kiosk, you might not want to do that?
Yeah, so we actually have 2 separate divisions to our business. We have one that's for events and activations. So think about the US Open, right? We work with, JP Morgan Chase and helping them being the charging provider of the event, and we're the underlying technology. So we do activations, right? And the activations, we have much more flexibility. Generally speaking, for permanent installations, the stations that are actually in the network themselves, we try to avoid, obviously, branding the batteries just because, again, you never know where it's going to end up. You don't want one brand ending up in another station at another venue that might not want that brand there. So, but we do have 2 sides to the business, 2 arms, right? Events and activations, and also our permanent installation side.
Out of curiosity, what percentage of people return it to a machine that's not at the one that they rented it from?
In terms of people returning to the same venue, and I say that because obviously we'll have more stations in a single venue, the same venue will see around 80% or so will return it within that venue. And then you have 20% that, again, take advantage of the ability to actually return it to another station in the city.
Mm-hmm. Or not at all. Which leads me to my next question. When I heard about the pricing for ChargeFUZE, I was really impressed. It sounded really low from a consumer standpoint, which is awesome. So can you walk us through how much it costs to rent a battery from a ChargeFUZE station? And then I guess it's by time. And then after a certain amount of time, if you keep it, what you're looking at there?
Yeah, no, great question. So the model itself, the way it works is we have, and it ranges depending on the venue type, but generally speaking, it's $2 for every 30 minutes. You get a full charge in about 50 minutes or so. So generally speaking, people will spend anywhere from $2 to $4 to get a full charge. If you end up keeping the battery, you get capped at $40. At that point in time, it's not like we, again, just charge you and that's it. All our batteries actually have a USB-C port on the side, so you can actually recharge the battery at home. So in essence, it's like you bought a high quality all-in-one portable charger for $40, right?
Yeah,
not too bad.
So that's not bad at all. Yeah, so it's $20 is the max that you're renting it for. Another 20 as, let's call it, a penalty for not returning it all. That's not bad. I mean, yeah, maybe it's a little bit higher than you would pay for it at retail for the same milliamp, I'm sure, but it's convenient because it's at that location that you were at. And if you don't want to return it, it's only $40. Like, I mean, relatively speaking.
Exactly.
And before we wrap up, Brandon, what's next for Fuze Technology, the company, and your ChargeFUZE stations?
Because our product has, in essence, it's applicable to every venue type, hospitals, restaurants, bars, casinos, you name it. We have a lot more to do, obviously, with general expansion. So we're really, doubling down in the U.S. market. We're also exploring opportunities internationally as well.
Beginning with what country?
We started in Canada already, actually, and we started in Europe as well.
And what's the best place to learn more?
Go to chargefuze.com. Everything is really on that website. And then also we have ad-fuze.com, which is launching this quarter. So people and brands that actually want to advertise on our platform can go there as well.
Brandon, great to chat with you. Thanks so much for carving out some time to chat. Congratulations on already the success of ChargeFUZE. Good to talk to you.
Appreciate it, Mark. Thanks for your time as well.
Thank you to Intel. Its Core Ultra processor represents the biggest shift in Intel's CPU design in more than 40 years, adding generative AI capabilities to the laptop. This makes accessing your data more personalized, faster, and more secure than leveraging the cloud. Get immediate results by asking your computer something like, show me the email where I was promised a raise, or where are my wedding photos? The AI PC is here. More info is at intel.com/Core Ultra. When we return on Tech It Out, a few minutes with the Kevin Smith, legendary filmmaker. We'll talk tech when we return on Tech It Out. Stay with us.
Listen to Tech It Out whenever you want. Find the Tech It Out podcast at iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Tech It Out, everyone. If you are a regular listener to this program, you know that starting 2 weeks ago, I've been playing some snippets of an interview with the Kevin Smith, the man behind movies such as Mallrats and Chasing Amy, of course, Clerks, his breakout film, Dogma, the Jay and Silent Bob flicks, and many others. Not just movies, but he writes comics and TV shows and does stand-up and a ton of the Comic-Cons and the like. So it's amazing to have him on Tech It Out. So I want to play more of a recent interview that we did on KFI AM 640 in Southern California, the #1 talk radio station in LA and Orange County and San Diego, and on iHeartRadio. Being a film fanatic, it was a real kick to chat with Kevin. So I'll play you a few more minutes with the man, the legend, the living legend, Kevin Smith.
We're sitting here. We're ready, man. Our ears are ready to receive, just like yours, Tech Talk with Mark Saltzman.
The machines are getting smarter. This is Tech Talk, brought to you by Skynet.
Mark, you there?
I am. Hey, good morning.
I could not
gentlemen.
wait to Tech Talk to you.
That was fun last week.
It was. It was good times, man. Mm-hmm. And then Mondo reached out to me. He's like, he wants to use your piece in a thing. I said, that sounds filthy, but go ahead. Did you use my piece in a thing? How'd it go?
I did. Yeah, a little bit less graphic than that. I host a podcast called Tech It Out. So I reached out to Robin, the PD at the station, and to your producers to say, hey, can I use a little bit more than a snippet? Because I was so happy as a film fan to be interviewed by you last week was a real kick for me personally and professionally.
You're adorable.
So I asked permission and they're like, yeah, go ahead.
You're going to be hearing from my lawyer any day now.
Exactly.
I didn't approve it.
You want royalties, right?
Yeah. Then let's tech it out, as you say on your show. Mm-hmm. What do you got for us?
Well, hey, I know you're super successful, Kevin. I'm
what?
15 movies, 14 of which they've written.
16.
And, sorry, my bad.
Come on.
Are you counting 430, which isn't done yet, or no?
I'm counting the 430 movie, which comes out at the end of the year. And also, a lot of people don't count Kilroy Was Here, which is a movie I made with film school students in Sarasota, and it only came out as an NFT. You
also weren't credited for Coyote Ugly, which
look how deep cut you are.
We'll get to that. Well, because I asked ChatGPT to tell me some things about you most people don't know, and that was one of the things.
Spooky.
My point was, my videos on social media, they do well, but they don't generally go viral. One of the videos that I shot at the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas a couple weeks back has 1.1 million views and over 30,000 shares. That's on Instagram alone. Yeah, so I was happy about that. It's this transparent TV from LG. If you haven't seen this, it made its debut a couple weeks ago in Sin City. When it's turned off, the television is virtually see-through. So it can blend into your decor. You don't have to put it against your wall. In other words, you can have it on like an easel kind of thing or wherever you want to place it. Or you can have it show you some content like fish in an aquarium, if you will, and you can see through to the other side. So it's got this cool sort of conversation piece thing. And then when it's turned on, you could watch TV semi-transparent if you want to. I don't know why you would, but then there is like an opaque mode where this screen in the back glides up and it makes it fully opaque.
Have you seen
So that
it?
was cool.
Did you see it in action?
Yeah. So the video that went viral, I shot it. It was a vertical. Don't roll your eyes as a filmmaker.
You
it
never
was a
get
vertical.
that from me. I'm no snob. Vertical, whatever gets the image out.
Well, because it was like, it was an Instagram reel. So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
shot it vertically and I also used it on TikTok and stuff. So I shot it at CES. Yeah, that was back a few weeks ago. And that was the one that I posted the same day and it hit 1 million views and all that. So that was kind of cool for me. So yeah, that's, if you want to check it out or tech it out, you could just Google Mark Saltzman and LG transparent TV. And it's a pretty cool video.
That's why I told them you could have as much of our interview as possible. I was like, he gets them hits.
Oh, yeah.
He's viral, Mark Saltzman.
Yeah, that's right. He's a viral sensation. What else did I want to talk about that a lot of, I'm sure, KFI listeners who use the incognito or private mode when they're using the web, when they're browsing the web, think that what they're doing is private. So I wrote an article for AARP. You're too young to know about that.
They just sent me some literature the other day. I'm ready to join.
Right. We're both 1970s, so I guess we're getting
there. ARP's coming for us.
I wrote a piece.
The world according to ARP is going to happen to us.
That's it. So I wrote how you're not invisible, unlike that TV.
Wait, what?
When you're browsing in private mode or incognito mode. Whatever you do while you're browsing is known by your internet service provider, by your browser company, your search engine. All of it is as if you were fully exposed, but when you leave that browsing session, your history is cleaned out and your cache and cookies, like anything that remembers you. But what you did during that session is completely known.
Whoa.
So that is something that I wrote about for AARP last week, how to browse more, privately. You can do one of two things. Use a private browser like DuckDuckGo is one of the most popular on the planet. It's just like Chrome or Safari or Edge or Firefox, but nothing is tracked. Whatever you do is not tracked. Everything you're completely anonymous. And that's including search, by the way, because it has its own search engine, or use a VPN, which is often a free piece of software, a virtual private network piece of software that lets you log into the internet as if you were somewhere else geographically. That's called an IP address. Like, you live in Michigan. You want to make it look like you're browsing from Texas. It'll look like you're at, 192.168, that kind of thing. And then whatever you do is fully anonymous. It's kind of like the analogy is like instead of driving on the highway or freeway at the super information highway, which is the internet, you're underground. You're still going to get to your destination, but there aren't any, traffic copters hovering above you seeing where you're going.
All right. So we could all breathe easier knowing that we can continue to go to Pornhub now.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, we should probably end it right there before I get in trouble. You could hear where that conversation was going. The Kevin Smith, everyone. Awesome. When we return on Tech It Out, we're going to chat with a doctor about how to reduce the odds of getting a headache while you're gaming. He's a cognitive scientist based in beautiful Montreal. So stick with us if you're into gaming or know someone who is. You're going to want to hear this. So stick with us. We'll be right back with more Tech It Out.
Want to follow Mark? Google him. Mark with a C and Saltzman with a Z. Breaking down geek speak into street speak. This is Tech It Out. Tech It Out with technology columnist, author, and TV personality Mark Saltzman.
Welcome back to Tech It Out. If it's true, 66% of Americans, or more than 215 million people, play games regularly, chances are you or someone you know does play games, and often on a PC. And I received a smart PR pitch, public relations pitch, from Advil's agency about the correlation between gaming and headaches and how to reduce them. Joining us on the line to chat is Dr. Séamas Weech, a distinguished cognitive scientist who has authors work to create genre-based guidelines to help gamers minimize associated side effects, like headaches. Thanks for your time, Dr. Weech. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Yes, same here, Mark. Good to talk to you.
Now, before we talk about what has been explained to me as Advil Head Settings related to PC gaming, and again, that alleged link to headaches, please tell us a bit about your work.
Yeah, so I'm Dr. Séamas Weech. I'm a research scientist. I have a PhD in cognitive science, and my work usually looks at how we interact with digital technology with a focus on our senses and our perception. I've worked in postdoctoral positions at the University of Waterloo and McGill University, and I've tried to build our understanding of the side effects that come along with particularly immersive technologies like virtual reality. So with that, my interests are in how the brain and body adapt when we put them into virtual settings.
Sounds fascinating. As I hinted at off the top with those stats, very relevant, just given how big interactive entertainment is these days, or at least just spending time on a PC, right? Forget virtual reality and consoles and all that. It's obviously very much a digital society. There are associated side effects with that. First of all, why does this happen? Could you explain to us why we would get a headache from spending too much time gaming?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been great to partner with Advil on this. The whole idea stems from trying to understand the gamer's experience. It's often the case that the long gaming sessions that people undergo involve intense focus and a massive amount of information processing, which can be quite demanding on the eyes and areas of the brains involved in planning your next move. So for us, the Advil Head Settings initiative isn't just about the screen time, it's about optimizing the whole gaming environment to make it more comfortable for players. And so we're looking at factors like lighting, the display settings, and the break patterns to create a more gamer-friendly setup. One thing to note here is we worked alongside Michael Tash, MTash, to develop the head settings. Michael's a long-time streamer and experienced gamer, and we felt for this project it was really important to work with people with his level of experience in gaming.
Yeah, that's great. I want to chat with you about the genre related differences. Before then, is there anything generic that we can discuss to help those listening? And I've written articles about ergonomics and things like that, Dr. Weech, like how to sit at your computer. And I like that 20-20-20 rule where you're encouraged to look away from your screen every 20 minutes, about 20 feet away for about 20 seconds.
Yeah, so I think that 20-20-20 rule that you mentioned, Mark, is really helpful because of its simplicity. And it's all about having a message that people can remember so that they can actually apply it to their everyday life without having to get a big handbook out, right? So that's a little bit what we've tried to do with the Advil Head Settings. While not everyone is prone to a gaming headache, for those who are, I think the most important thing is that we're encouraging them to be proactive and set themselves up for success. So everyone is a little bit different, and it's important that we acknowledge the need for a little bit of trial and error to see what works best for you as an individual. So first, you can think about the lighting in your room, and it should be sufficiently bright that your eyes are not fighting to adapt to in-game environments that can switch in a moment from very dark to very bright. And then likewise, we recommend taking the time to adjust the display settings like color saturation and contrast, as those are likely to have a big impact in that respect. It's often a good idea, something we recommend, to disable some of the post-processing or particle effects, as some of those things that we consider eye candy visuals can also stress the visual system over time.
I didn't even think about that. And is this tied to console gaming as well, or are we strictly talking here computer gaming?
Yeah, so some of these principles apply to console gaming as well. Obviously, you have a little bit less controllability of the settings on console as a general rule, but you do have control over some really important factors that we highlight. So for instance, as you hinted at earlier, ergonomic seating and careful positioning of your display can help as well. So a little bit below the line of sight is often the most comfortable for a display, and not taking up too much of your visual field, but comfortably large display area for reading fine print. And so, you know, it may seem obvious as well, but stepping away from the screen for a few minutes every hour is almost certainly one of the best ways to make sure that you stay refreshed.
No doubt. We're chatting with Dr. Séamas Weech. He is a research scientist living in the Montreal area. He is chatting with us about guidelines to help gamers minimize any associated side effects to screen time and gaming, like headaches. In fact, he's partnered with Advil on a collection of tips called Advil Head Settings. And I did want to ask you about the genre-based guidelines, Dr. Weech. This is interesting to me. So the kinds of games you play, the tips you have may vary, whether it's a strategy game or action shooter. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So different game genres have different visual and cognitive demands, and it's about striking the right balance. So enhancing the gaming experience by aligning the settings with the specific demands of each game genre. So for instance, first-person action games will have a lot of these rapid movements and bright flashes, which take up the whole screen. Whereas a strategy game, on the other hand, might involve longer periods of intense concentration, where the whole brightness of the screen might not change a lot, but you might end up spending a lot of time reading a lot of fine print text on the screen. And our guidelines are meant to fit with these differences across genres so that we help people adjust their settings in a way that aligns with the type of game they're playing. So playing an active role in this customization for me is the key to improving the gaming experience.
Is there anywhere we can go to read these tips? And by the way, I'm impressed that, your answer wasn't, just pop a couple of Advil. You've got some really good takeaways here. I would expect, the obligatory plug, which is fine. All kidding aside, is there a website where we can learn more about this or any kind of resource, videos or things like that?
Sure. So you can search for Advil Head Settings in your favorite search engine, where you'll find all the specific details. So we've kept on the broad level here, Mark, but there's a lot of fine details to sort through there. You can also catch a link to the streaming channel of our gaming collaborator, Michael Mtash, right there on the landing page. And I know that Advil are working with a number of creators to spread the word to as many people as possible. So I'm sure that people may want to check back in at the landing page to see more of that in the future.
And of course, Advil.com for general headache-related tips. Or, as Dr. Weech said, you can just do a search. So just go to your favorite search engine when you're free to do so and type in Advil Head Settings to read this list of tips for gamers to reduce the odds of getting a headache. Dr. Weech, thanks again for your time. Really fascinating topic, and really appreciate you carving out some time to chat with us today. All the best.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
We'll be right back with more Tech It Out.
Breaking down geek speak into street speak. Tech It Out, hosted by Mark Saltzman.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Tech It Out. Not sure if any listeners are using AI on a regular basis with empowering tools like ChatGPT or Google Gemini, formerly Bard, but there is a downside to AI, artificial intelligence, in that it's also being used by cybercriminals to defraud you. And so who better to chat with about cybersecurity tips than McAfee, one of the biggest companies that protect you and your data. We're joined by Steve Grobman. He's CTO of McAfee. Hey, Steve, good to chat with you.
Hey, Mark, thanks for having me.
You were great to interview, by the way, for an AARP magazine article a couple months back. And it's too bad we couldn't connect at last month's Consumer Electronics Show in person, but thrilled to have you on the show today to discuss this very important topic.
Well, it's great to be here, and it's definitely a lot going on that is keeping us awake and making sure that we can take care of consumers.
So with that in mind, before we talk about new cyber threats and how to fight back, of course, please tell us a bit about McAfee.
Sure. So McAfee is now a pure play consumer security company. So we're defending consumers from all the threats that exist in their digital life, regardless of where they are, whether it's on their devices, in the cloud, even the threats that I know we're going to talk a lot about today related to new types of issues related to bad actors using AI. So we've been doing this for a long time, for over 3 decades. And we're protecting over 100 million customers around the world.
Wow. It would be remiss for me not to ask you why someone should consider McAfee, aside from your heritage. 3 decades.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to that our focus is on protecting the consumer. We're not about selling eyeballs. We're about making sure that we give you the best defense against a wide range of threats, whether that's, traditional malware that we detect, whether it's preventing you from going to a dangerous website, or whether it's using the best technology available to detect that a bad actor used generative AI to create a new scam or to trick you or a loved one into doing something that would have a bad outcome.
Unfortunately, those who fall victim to these scams are often the ones who can least afford it. And by the way, McAfee is what I use, McAfee Ultimate Family. And we will talk software and some solutions in a couple of moments. But let's now pivot and chat about AI and deepfakes, including how it relates to the election year. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the FCC just made robocalls made with fake voices illegal.
Yeah, that's right. And we applaud the FCC in taking a stand. But, one of the challenges in cybersecurity is it's not like other crimes where the criminals are actually in close proximity to the victims. Cybercrime crosses geographic boundaries, and often the reach of law enforcement to go after the cyber criminals is really difficult. So while law enforcement will be part of the solution, tools, technology, education are also really critical in a comprehensive defense in preventing deepfakes from being an effective tool for bad actors.
So we're referring to these, sometimes it's audio. I think we're going to start seeing more video where it sounds like someone you may recognize, like the president of the United States, but it's been generated with artificial intelligence and it's being used to deceive those who are hearing this or seeing this. Is that fair?
That's right. So using information, usually either audio of a person or video fed into a model, or a model is created from real audio or video of a person. And then once that model exists, you can create new audio or video of the person saying or doing anything. So this could be used for a wide range of nefarious and also entertainment purposes. So, while we do see a lot of these deep fakes being things like parodies, scammers are using them for fake investment scams, using celebrities. We also see scams where they're endorsing a product or saying that a product is going to be given away for a very cheap price, but then it never shows up. There's also a lot of concern about deepfakes being used in politics. Clearly, being able to show a politician doing or saying something that they didn't actually do or say could cast them in a very different light. We need to be aware that the technology to build these deepfakes has become a lot easier to use in 2024. We expect the volume of deepfakes to be much higher than we've seen in previous years.
Fair enough. And I just saw one of Oprah. It was a video that looked like Oprah, sounded like Oprah, endorsing some pharma product that wasn't really her.
I very often get asked, how can I detect a deepfake? It's really hard to look for technical characteristics that would give away that high quality audio or video deepfake is fake. And that's why it's a combination of education. If you see something that just doesn't seem right, or it's a deal that sounds too good to be true, but also combining that with what I think of as using AI to detect bad uses of AI or detect that AI is being used. So a lot of what McAfee is doing is investing in how do we use the most advanced AI techniques to look for, micro characteristics that would be in the audio or video that would be able to call out that this is fake. And then we can go ahead and inform the user. So as an example, over the last few weeks at CES, we introduced something called Project Mockingbird, our technology that looks for AI-generated signals in audio so we can tell whether audio, typically in a video, is real or fake. And, we'll be looking forward to making that technology available to our customers so they can help identify whether something is real or not.
More with McAfee when we return on Tech It Out.
Follow Mark Saltzman on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Listen to Tech It Out whenever you want.
continue chatting with McAfee in a moment about cybersecurity. And on a related note, a huge thank you to Visa for your partnership on Tech It Out. Did you know that shoppers are 3 times more likely to enter an unfamiliar store if it displays a Visa logo? And customers are 5 times more likely to think a merchant is reputable. This is because Visa has invested billions over the years in fraud prevention. So you don't need to think twice about shopping at retail or online with your Visa card, nor should businesses be concerned about secure payments. Visa is deploying advanced technology to ensure customer data is not vulnerable, no matter where the transactions take place. This includes tokens pioneered by Visa as one part of the solution, which reduces the risk of identity theft because this technology replaces your cardholder info with a random alphanumeric code, so the merchant never sees your actual card number, yet ensures a fast transaction as well. To learn more about Visa's work in protecting you and your purchases, visit visa.com/security. Speaking of security, we're joined by Steve Grobman. He's Chief Technical Officer at McAfee, one of the leading cybersecurity companies on the planet. We're talking how to spot and stop deepfakes. So the answer is education, software, like what McAfee is offering, and we'll get to that in a moment. And I know deepfakes are also being used to trick employees into sending money somewhere because it, again, sounds like the boss on the phone telling you to wire, a few $100,000 to this client here in this country. And I'm assuming video is next. So, and at this point, yes, you can maybe tell that Oprah's lips weren't quite moving properly or Biden's mouth, and you can tell it's not perfect, but I think it's only going to get better, unfortunately. And so with Valentine's Day last week, romance scams were in the news again. Is this also deepfake related, or is this something different?
Yeah, just as almost every business is using AI, we see the same thing in cybercrime where every type of scam is looking at how they can effectively use various types of AI in order to be more effective at tricking victims, and romance scams fall into that category. Maybe just stepping back a second for folks that are not familiar with how romance scams work. It's typically a scammer that will pretend to be an individual and strike up an online relationship with someone. So they'll chat with them a lot, they'll exchange photos and get to know them at a more deep level. And then they'll typically have some event occur where they'll say they have a family member that needs a medical procedure, or they were in an accident, or some other context where they want the victim to send the money. Some of these romance scams are also related to investment scams where they'll try to coerce their victim into investing in a fake investment platform. AI has been a valuable tool in all of these romance scams because they can use things like large language models to write much better sounding chats and exchanges much more efficiently. So in the old days where a romance scammer would have to work really hard to craft a note to the set of victims that they're farming, what they can do with generative AI is they can use the technology to do a lot of that for them. They can also use some of the capabilities like generative images to create fake images of what they say is themselves or, places they've been, and really get the individual to believe that they're somebody that they're not.
Yeah, I've been covering romance scams for many years, and they are getting more sophisticated. So thank you for that refresher on what we're dealing with here. And how prevalent are romance scams, Steve?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do is we not only study the technology, but we'll go out and interview real consumers to understand whether they're being impacted by these threats. We ran one survey recently that we called Modern Love. A third of Americans said they'd had an online love interest turn out to be a scammer.
Wow, holy.
And 42% of those people said they came across fake profiles or photos that look like AI generated in the past. So it's a really, really challenging issue. We've seen that there's a hyper awareness what AI is and how it can be used, but it's a little bit more difficult to recognize that that same technology is being used by the bad actors and scammers.
And the unfortunate reality is that many of these victims aren't going to report it because they're embarrassed that they fell for this kind of scam. And so the problem just continues. Tech It Out listeners, there's more with Steve Grobman that we just unfortunately don't have time to get to, but I promise to continue on next week with a few solutions, including McAfee's own software. You'll have to tune in next weekend for the conclusion of this interview with Steve Grobman. Thank you so much, Steve. It was great chatting with you. We're just going to put a pin in that for now. I want to thank our listeners for tuning in this weekend, and a huge thank you to Intel, the title sponsor on Tech It Out, for your support on this program. The AI PC is here. More is at intel.com/Core Ultra. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. And I look forward to catching up with you next weekend for more Tech It Out. Bye-bye for now.